Crouse.
Let's start by having a look at how you chose the people that you write about in the book, because it's quite a varied collection of people. There's some famous, some not so much. Tell me what your qualifications were.
Well, they had to lead kind of extreme lives that in a way I could relate to mine, that they somehow were braver than me because something awful happened or something good happened or great success or great failure or great notoriety. And it's really my memoir, so it's about me, but it's told through other people. So they had to relate to my life in some way. And I also wanted to be sure that I had not already written about them or used them in my one-man show, or I wanted new material.
Right. It starts off with Johnny Mathis, and in a chapter that's not only, really beautifully written, but also I thought sort of surprising, because you learned this is someone that you've been a fan of for a very long time, and yet in your meeting you learned a great deal about him.
Well, I wasn't surprised when I met him, and I think he was a great gentleman. I think that we understood each other. It's funny, now I just finished a 3.5-week book tour in America where I think I did every radio station in the world, and every time I come out, they play Johnny Mathis records. So really, I can't get them out of my head even more now, and fans are giving me all the old albums and everything. So my Johnny Mathis obsession just got better. But he was a gentleman. He was lovely. It didn't surprise me. I knew that, his politics were a little different from mine. I knew that he's from a different era. But he also has mass acceptance. And he doesn't do phone interviews, I promise you. He doesn't do anything to promote his fame. Yet, I went to see him in Baltimore, his Christmas show, and there was no advance press. There was nothing. It was completely sold out. So he is beyond fame. He's beyond race. He's beyond trying too hard. So, the rest of my life, I have to think of something every morning to keep going. I'm not sure he does, but yet he's no oldies but goodies act in any way. He can still really sing wonderfully. And I think everybody should just make out, maybe that's the answer to politics, is that at the night of the election, everyone makes out, and then maybe it would be, I don't know what would happen then. It might change things.
Well, there's no political figures in your book.
Well, all humor is political. I actually think every person in the book is political in a way, because art is political, everything is political, because you're taking a stance and you're being extreme in some way. And the very fact that I picked them as a role model is political, I think. It might not be politically correct, although actually I think my book has no irony in it, and I think it doesn't have any bad taste in it in a weird way. Even the pornographers I try to elevate them to art, and we just got the first great review of I gave a show of David Hurl's. I curated a show with Diane Hansen, who's a Taschen book editor, and she's great, of David Hurl's so-called pornographic work at Marion Bosky Gallery in New York, and we just got a first really good art review in Modern Painters magazine. So it worked.
Wow. Well, he is someone, for people who don't know, who are listening, that you prefer his work to Robert Mapplethorpe's.
Well, I think it's stronger and scarier, certainly. He didn't do any tulips on the side. And I like Robert Mapplethorpe, certainly. I think that book by Patti Smith is great, Just Kids, and he broke down a lot of doors and everything. But David Hurl's, these outsider pornographers, they didn't take the work for art. They did it in secret almost. They did it because they had to do it, like an outsider artist does. This was not done for art. This is the only pornography they look at as their own. So, directors, have you ever heard a director say they watch their old movies? Nobody does. He does.
Well, it's true, and you write about that in the book. And he does, and it's sort of his way of remembering his great conquests and sort of looking back at a life, because his situation now isn't particularly good.
No, he's in the hospital, but it came from a stroke, I think, from being with a trick and maybe being high. I don't know. He's unashamed about anything. There's an interview with him in Butt magazine, which actually is a fairly intellectual gay magazine. It might not sound like it, but where they asked him, who was the last person you slept with? He said, a homeless guy in the park who had something F the police on his tattooed on his chest, and he was hot, which really made me laugh. These people, they don't give up. They don't change. So in a way, they're saints of sordidness in a way. They gave up their life for this. Not that they should have, or I think it's a good idea, but it is fascinating to me to see people that go to this extremes for sexual taste.
Well, I wrote a book of few years ago where I compared the films of Ed Wood Jr. to the films of Michael Bay.
Yeah.
And I suggested that Ed Wood Jr. was probably a better filmmaker because he had to work so hard to get those films made.
Yes, and Ed Wood was an outsider filmmaker almost himself. He would be, I would think, the closest to it. He didn't think those movies were funny.
No.
He was dead serious about it. He wasn't making them because the studio had done market testing on them or to make money. He made them because he had to also. And that's the case where they find these outsider artists where their entire life they've been painting one thing over and over and it's hidden. They've never showed it to anybody. That's what Bobby Garcia, who only photographs heterosexual Marines, and David Hills, who really photographs heterosexual psychopaths. That is what they celebrate.
Yeah, that chapter, I found, the story, I wasn't familiar with his work, and I found that chapter to be, I guess sinister is not the word, but there was something, I felt that it was so unsafe what he was doing.
Well, it is. Are you kidding? I mean, my favorite line that makes me laugh every time, he said their wives were the worst. I had to give them diaper money. Diaper money. I'd never heard that as a sexual payoff.
Now, you have, in the book, there's a couple of different tones in the book. I thought that the chapter on the clothes, the Comme des Garçons, it was hilarious. Made me laugh.
I just heard from the husband of the designer who liked it very much. He just read it, so that was nice.
Oh, good. Well, yeah, there's a question. Let me sort of veer off for a sec. How have the people that are written about in the book reacted, and have you heard from some of them?
I've heard from almost everybody. I have not heard from Cy Twombly, but he knew I gave a lecture. What I did some of that stuff at the Smithsonian already, so he already knew about it. Everybody was really, really very favorable about it. Zorro's daughter, she sort of outed herself. She's let most of the people in her whole life had no idea about it, and she lets them read it, and they're speechless. But she's sort of a way for her to come to terms with it. All the kids of Esther Martin, the woman that owned the wigwam, they've all bought copies, and they loved it, and they thanked me for treating their mother with respect. I don't think anyone in the book do I treat badly, not with respect. Leslie Van Houten's relatives, her family were very thankful. I mean, to just read somebody once that wasn't turning her into a monster. So I haven't had anyone yet that I know of. Johnny Mathis's assistant said he thought it was funny. So I mean, I haven't heard from anybody that has had a negative reaction. I would be very hurt if it was, because I certainly was trying to praise each one of the people.
Well,
Richard Crouse.